now listening to the Region 10 Report with your host, Suzanne Posel from OccupyCorporatism.com, where the alternative media gets their news. This show will expose the elite domination plan, disinfo agents, propaganda, corporate control, and the UN plan to strip the world of its freedom and the U.S. of its Constitution. This is the Region 10 Report with Suzanne Posel, bringing you the real truth behind the news.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Region 10 Report. This is episode number 8. The Region 10 Report is broadcast on American Freedom Radio, 11 to midnight Central, on AM stations across the globe, as well as Prepper Podcast Network, UCY.TV, iTunes podcast downloads. Just type in the Region 10 Report, Spreaker.com, Shoutcast, and Blog Talk Radio. You can listen to all of our previous episodes at radio.occupycorporatism.com. New articles are posted daily on our website, occupycorporatism.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or sign up for our RSS feed to get the latest news from occupycorporatism.com. I'm your host, Suzanne Posel. My co-host, David Posel, is with me, and tonight we are going to talk about gun control. Now, for the past week or so, we have been lied to, we've been misinformed, not only by the mainstream, but also by the alternative media, all surrounding Sandy Hook shooting and gun control. So let's start off with the shooting. The shooting was in Newtown, Connecticut. An estimated 27 people died, including 18 children. Now, there are a lot of things that surrounded the initial reports that the father of the student was the shooter, that the mother was at the school. Later, we found out that she was at home. We thought that it was Ryan Lanza, and Ryan Lanza was at work, and he was watching the television, and he saw his name plastered all over the news and was wondering what was going on. It was actually his younger brother, Adam Lanza, who was living at home with his mother, Nancy. The initial reports fudged all of this up, but what we can surmise was he shot his mother at home, got in the car, took the guns, and went to the school. Now, at the school, there was a lot of things that we weren't clear on in the beginning. How many shooters were there? There are YouTube videos with the police talking to each other and dispatch that say that there were more than one shooter. In fact, there's a number of 4 shooters, Lanza being one of them and 3 others. One teacher reported that she saw 2 shadows running by one of the windows. The cops report that the 2 shooters were coming at them and that they were in custody. There was a gentleman found in the woods who was arrested, and he was wearing camouflage pants. And he looked directly at one of the cameras for the mainstream news and said that he didn't do this. But we can sit here all day long and try and figure out how they pulled off this false flag. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, this is a false flag. They're using this shooting. They murdered these children for a reason. And the reason is the Obama administration wants to take your guns. And they don't want you to know that they want to take your guns. They want you to hand them over. Like in San Francisco last Saturday. They had a buyback in Oakland. In San Francisco and Oakland last Saturday, citizens brought their guns to sell to the police for cash. So for $200, these law-abiding citizens gave up their guns to the police. And the Oakland City Police Chief, Howard Jordan, said, and I quote, "When we remove guns from our streets that could be used in crimes, we reduce the possibility of our youth and community being a victim." However, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't the criminals who handed in their guns for $200. It was the law-abiding citizens that handed in their guns for $200. So this means there are that many people in Oakland and in San Francisco who don't have anything to defend themselves with because they turned in their guns for $200. Is your safety against this tyrannical government worth $200? I know that we're out of work. and I know that we're reaching the fiscal cliff, and our communist in chief, like the shepherd leading us to slaughter, is going to push us over the cliff. And I understand there's a lot of rhetoric and there's a lot of people standing in welfare lines, and they're probably talking on their Obama phones right now. But is your safety, is our Second Amendment, is our right to defend ourselves worth $200? Maybe you should ask yourself that if you live in California and you turned in your gun. But let's get back to the shooting. With the shooting, we saw that Obama came right out and cried on camera. And it was really interesting to me that he even invoked his own children, who are protected by the Secret Service. So if, God forbid, this had happened at a school where his children went to, you better believe that his children would have been miles and miles and miles away before anything could have happened to them. But Jay Carney, the White House spokesperson said that Obama is not going to take anybody's guns, that Obama would be waiting to see what information was coming out about the incident. And when Obama stood there initially in front of all of us in the James Brady briefing room, and James Brady is part of the Reagan shooting. He was shot. And this, the initiative, the James Brady Initiative for gun control, is very vocal on removing guns from people's hands, restricting our Second Amendment so that we don't have the right to defend ourselves. So capitalizing on the death of these children, Obama stood at this press conference in this room, the James Brady briefing room, to discuss the shooting and what he planned on doing to strip Americans of their Second Amendment rights. And he's not going to come out and use any sort of force in order to take our guns. I mean, look at these people in San Francisco and Oakland. They get a letter or they get a notification, and they're willing to trade their freedom for $200. He doesn't have to come out and force us to take our guns from us. We're just handing them over. And these children who died, their deaths are being used not only by the mainstream media in the spin, and we'll get into the subject of mental illness and further into the subject of gun control. Big Pharma is taking advantage of this. Big Pharma and the medical industry wants to classify the right to bear arms as a medical disorder. And this goes back to the Batman shooting and the Sikh shootings. They want to circumvent our constitutional right to our Second Amendment and say that if we have national health care, that should be the approach to the problem. Wanting to defend ourselves and utilize our Second Amendment rights is a mental disorder. And we should regulate our guns, just like they regulate tobacco and alcohol. And this is ridiculous. Don't you think, David?
Yeah, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard of. I can't imagine that. But, really look at who owns, the pharmaceutical industry. Previously, all these patents were developed by Joseph Mengele and the Nazis and that whole group. So, when you look at how that evolved and created the companies that we have, like Pfizer and Merck and those companies, it's really not much of a surprise. We just have to do a little history lesson.
And let's talk about a history lesson. Operation Northwoods, which was a plan approved in the 1960s by the chairman and joint chiefs of staff that called for civilians to be shot in America while violent terrorism would be staged across the United States. Patsy operatives would be framed for bombings of planes and shootings where hijackings would appear to be evidence of plants. And this was to blame Castro in Cuba in the 1960s. But I don't think that they're going to take this idea and throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're seeing these false flags staged by the FBI and the CIA. We're seeing planted bombs and explosive materials. We've seen this with the James Holmes shooting.
The same with the Sikh shooter. I mean, they got one person dead, but then what happened to the other three? They let them go, right? Or what happened?
They disappeared.
Right. Meanwhile, they had the whole place surrounded, and then they had these three people that they physically saw with weapons and fired.
The witnesses inside the temple.
Right, but they didn't fire on these guys. They just somehow walked out through the woods, or what?
Exactly. And we see this with this shooting too.
Same. Yeah.
There are 3 people that are unaccounted for. Well, one person was taken out of the woods and arrested, but 2 other people are unaccounted for.
Right.
And so we hear this in the police, the audio, the police talking to each other in dispatch, but we don't see this in the mainstream media.
Right.
And then one thing I want to point out to you folks, during this week, and this is something that the alternative media is guilty of this as well. And I'm going to get into the lies in the alternative media, but I want to bring this point out first. There was an audio and a video clip of the sheriff in Connecticut talking about how anyone who was caught on social media claiming to be the shooter, claiming to be representing the police department or any of the officers, and posting information on alternative media sites would be prosecuted, that they were speaking to the FBI and that they would find them and prosecute them. However, that 22 seconds out of that clip was removed and plastered on websites like Intel Hub and all over social media. And I ran into it several times. In fact, a lot of my readers and listeners brought it to me and said, oh my God, they're coming after us now. If we post anything on alternative media about the shooting, and ladies and gentlemen, I'd already written 2 articles on it. I myself was concerned until I did a little bit of digging and I found the actual full clip, and I noticed that 22 seconds was missing. And when I went to Intel Hub and saw it, and by the way, folks, Intel Hub has taken this down this week because earlier, a couple of days ago, Pete Santilli on the Pete Santilli show and I brought this out into the open. And Intel Hub has taken that down because they don't want to be exposed for the liars that they are, for the sensationalists that they are. But they've got this encoded in their website, in the front page of their website. So when you put a search for that video, you pop up under the front page of their website. In fact, they're number 2 on the Google search. You can test this out yourself, folks. If you're listening to my voice, try it out. But the entire clip was edited with 22 seconds missing because the 22 seconds said that the sheriff's officer speaking to the press was specifically saying anyone impersonating the shooter, anyone impersonating cops from that department or claiming to be cops and putting out false information would be prosecuted. That's not an attack on the alternative media. That's not an attack on people putting out information that is not being posted in the mainstream media or from the Connecticut Police Department. That 22 seconds is imperative because it changes the entire temperament of that video from fear-mongering the rest of us and being educated. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the alternative media telling you that something is happening and it's not true. And there are other people who claim to be alternative media who are saying things about this shooting that absolutely are not true. They have no basis in reality. And on the other side of the break, when we get to it, I have a few minutes left, but when we get on the other side of the break, I'm going to get into that. Because Operation Northwoods is scary enough. We saw with Nafis, and he was going to bomb the Federal Reserve. And we see how the FBI creates these false flags. This gentleman was picked up, and he was given all the materials that he needed in order to create the false flag, all the bombing materials. They videotaped him. They told him what to say. They gave him a sheet of paper and a pencil and told him what to write down. They completely framed this gentleman, brought him to the place, helped him put the bomb together, went to the store and bought extra materials that they needed with him, drove him to the place where they wanted him to detonate it, and when it didn't go off, bam, there, they foiled another terrorist plot. So we know that they create these scenarios. And we've seen time and time again how they murder Americans in order to justify the actions in which are going to happen. It's not the event that we need to focus on. How they pull off the false flag is not important. It really isn't, folks. I'm telling you that as a research journalist, as a member of the alternative media, I'm telling you that how they pull off the false flag, we can sit here and spin our wheels forever trying to figure that out. What we need to focus on is what they're doing because of the false flag. And as egregious as it is to murder 18 children and to cause parents to have to live without their babies, I have babies of my own. I can't imagine what those parents are going through. But as horrible as that is, we need to focus on what Obama is putting together right now. And we're going to talk about that in this episode. We're going to talk about it throughout the whole episode. And I want to hear from you folks. If you're out there, the phone number is 218-339-8525. 218-339-8525. Please call in and talk to me. I think that this is a conversation that we all need to have together. Because in the alternative media, we focus on false flags. We try and figure things out. We try and plot their moves. And I do this too in my articles. But one of the things that I've come to realize lately is that the evidence that is presented to us is tainted. Yes, it is. But what they use, how they use these false flags, and what they do to kill these babies, it touches our hearts. It makes these people in Oakland and San Francisco hand over their guns for $200. They don't care about their Second Amendment rights. They're afraid that something's going to happen to their children when they send them to school. And then that's what they're doing. They're using fear in order to get you to hand over your Second Amendment rights. Like I said before, Obama's not going to come in and stand up as dictator-in-chief that he really is, as our communist leader, and demand that we hand over our Second Amendment rights. He's going to coerce us into doing it. And how is he doing that? He's using the deaths of these babies in order to do that. And that is horrible. And so what we're going to see as a result of that, we're going to go through in this broadcast. And I want you to take this broadcast and plaster it to everybody that you know. You know, put it out on Twitter, put it out on Facebook, because this is educational and I want to hear from you. So if you're out there and you want to call and join in on the conversation, again, the number is 218-339-8525. And I will see you on the other side of this break. Please do not go away. You do not want to miss this episode.
Hi guys, this is David Bozel. Over the last couple of weeks we brought you songs from some musicians that we enjoy and we like and that are supporting our show. And Blue X Baxter has been in the spotlight for the last 2 weeks. And this week we're going to be bringing you No Messiah, who actually has been so gracious as to give us their songs and some access to some incredible jam sessions from them. And that's what you hear when you listen to the Region 10 Report on the way in. That's our intro music, also our exit music. And when we're going to break, that's usually who you're going to listen to. It's No Messiah. And I want you to go to their website and check this out. They've got videos, they've got songs that you can listen to right there. You can also download and listen to their iTunes songs. And I believe you can find them on SoundCloud as well. Their website is nomessiah.net, nomessiah.net. Go ahead and take a look. I think you'll like these guys a lot. Let them know what you think. Click their favorites. Have a good time. So here's the song, For Folk's Sake, by No Messiah.
Nights of cold despair, winter comes and all is lost. Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots brandishing brand names of one corporation, or conflagration, the most holy train wreck of all human history. Tell me how you feel.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We were talking, and we are going to keep talking about gun control. I have a caller on the line. I'm going to go ahead and take that caller. Benny in Kentucky. Benny, can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, my friend?
Hey, what's up?
I even sleep with AFR on.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm loving your show. And the past couple of days, I have been, I don't know, studying on this, on the gun control thing, you know, because it seems to be escalating. Here recently in my hometown, there was a girl that made a post on Facebook, said she was going to go to the local high school and shoot up the place. Now, the authorities addressed it, but it makes me think with, and what got me on this way of thinking was around the time of the Batman shooting, there was a movie that was supposed to come out, and they decided to wait on it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a gangster film. And there's a scene in that movie where gangsters, they come through the movie screen and shoot up the place. Now, this may just be my wild way of thinking, but Hollywood could be, maybe, is inspiring people to do these kinds of acts. Because, well, let's take, I love the movie V for Vendetta, but if you notice, that movie has inspired a lot of truthers to wear the anonymous mask. So sort of like what these other movies are inspiring people to do these more shootings, you know, sort of like subliminal messaging or something. And this would give the government...
Benny, that's true. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we also have a culture where we're completely bombarded in fear every single day. And we're absolutely frustrated. I'm sure you can agree. You know, we go to jobs that we hate because we have to pay these bills. We've got these federal notes that we have to keep trading, so we need more of them. And we're worried about whether or not we're going to lose our job. We're worried about the fiscal cliff. We're worried about what's going on in Greece. We absolutely don't want to end up like Spain or Greece. And just going out in public, everyone is just full of tension. 5 out of 9 people that you come in contact with, statistically speaking, is on some sort of psychotropic drug. And we have chemicals in the food, and we've got the chemtrails and all of this crap that we're breathing in. And then we go home and we watch Fox News, and for entertainment, we watch Dexter and things like that. I know, right? And so I start to wonder if maybe it's not so much that maybe they wait. You know, maybe they wait for us to snap and then use that as an excuse to bring in the gun control, to bring in the mental illness, to bring in these voluntary gun grabs like what happened in Oakland and San Francisco, where they offered people $200 to turn over their Second Amendment rights. We're all going crazy. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Exactly. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad it's not just me that's thinking on those same lines, because it's, you know, as I was speaking with my father, I said it's a matter of short time before, you know, the government intervenes and says, and now we don't have that right to carry guns anymore because it's just gotten too out of control, and you'll be forced, it'll be illegal to have a weapon. It would get to the point to where only the officials can have weapons, and then they can come in and manhandle you any way they want to because you don't have a weapon, and if you're caught with a weapon, then you'll be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
And that's how we're seeing it escalate.
And I'm going to go into in detail about what they're planning on doing and some things that people may not even be aware of, because I found out some interesting information this week and put it on my website, occupycorporatism.com. If you don't go to that website, I encourage you to, because there are hidden fears. It's not just Dianne Feinstein who's coming out with this gun control ban that she wants to ban all assault weapons. It's also, and I'm going to bring this up later on in the broadcast, Benny, but thank you absolutely so much for calling. I loved your call, and please call in anytime you want.
Okay, thank you, and listen, have a great night, okay?
You too. Thank you so much.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, folks. Benny brought up a good point, and one of the things that I want to bring up when it comes to gun control is we're talking about, well, what the mainstream media is talking about is mental illness. The National Institutes of Health claim that 1 out of 4 adults is mentally ill, which translates to 57.7 million Americans. And according to the Public Health Law Research, restricting firearm ownership, and people who are known to be prone to mental illness would significantly reduce homicide and suicide rates. It's not our Second Amendment and our access to guns that causes us to go crazy. It's an estimated 260 to 300 million firearm owners, registered gun owners in the United States, which equals 1/3 of the U.S. households. And propaganda studies on gun ownership are claiming that alcohol abuse and tendency towards violence and mental illness, emphatically, is what's causing all of these crazy outbursts, like with Adam Lanza. And so they're blaming assault weapons in the hands of people who are crazy. And Obama actually came out in July of this year, if everybody remembers, that he vowed to curb violence in American cities, including reasonable restrictions on gun ownership. He believes that our country was founded on this principle that we think that it's okay to have guns. No, our country was founded on a constitution which says that we have the right to bear arms to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. It's not a question of semantics. That's what our Constitution says. And that protects us from people like Obama, who want to take that right away. Because you get real peaceful when you're staring down the barrel of a gun and you cannot defend yourself. When you've got the small arms trade treaty going on in the UN, and we heard about this earlier this year, and we've got treaties going through Congress, and they want to take our guns from us, and Obama comes out right as soon as this shooting happens and says, this is really horrible, folks. 18 children died, and we've got people who are crazy, and they've got access to guns. And we need to get the guns off the streets so that we can stop this violence. He wants to take away our guns so that when we need them, we won't have them. When someone's got a semi-automatic or a military-grade weapon and he's pointing it at you and he's wearing a suit that's paramilitarized from your local police department and all you've got is a BB gun or a slingshot or a bat, there's no contest. You're turning yourself in. And that's exactly what they want. The people who would fight back, like the veterans, they're saying that those guys, they're crazy. They don't need guns because they're insane. Obama signed executive orders and signed other reported statements and said that all veterans who are returning to this country need to be medically evaluated. And the Department of Defense is in charge of who evaluates them, along with the Department of Veterans Affairs. And so they're saying that if you've served your country because of maybe you got hit in the head, you have TBI, Maybe you have post-traumatic stress disorder, and that makes you insane. And so you have to go and get screened. They want to take your blood to see whether or not you have a propensity to violence. And so they want you to also go and see a psychiatric doctor or a counselor, like a parole officer, when you return. You've served your country. You've done everything you can. You almost gave up your life in defense of our Constitution. And what happens when you come back? You're crazy. And the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs is in charge of your mental health, thanks to Obama. And so they want to take your guns away because you're crazy. And meanwhile, on the other side of that, we've got in the mainstream news, mental illness is attached to gun violence. And so people who are on psychotropic drugs or pharmaceutical drugs are crazy. And so if you're a veteran, you're crazy. If you're an average citizen, you're crazy. And so what do we need all of these guns on the streets for? It's not the criminals that turned in their guns last Saturday in Oakland and San Francisco, like I said. It's the citizens. It's those same people who may be on psychotropic drugs. It's those same people that Obama thinks is too insane to have those guns. And so now they have no way to defend themselves. And then we've got people like Mayor Bloomberg coming out. And just like he stated when the James Holmes shooting happened, he's saying that we have to stand up and demand that the Obama administration do something about this. Bloomberg stands for a consortium of mayors. There's 760 mayors in this country. And his organization is funded by the Joyce Foundation. Well, what is the Joyce Foundation? It's a foundation that was set up in Chicago by Valerie Jarrett and Obama when Obama was a senator. And so Mayor Bloomberg, standing in front as the mouthpiece, is saying that we need to take our guns. All of these mayors who are standing behind him, who are funded by the Joyce Foundation, who was set up by Valerie Jarrett and Barack Obama in Chicago, they're all standing and saying, we want you to turn in your guns. We don't want to have to push legislation through. But you know what? They've already got legislation. Dianne Feinstein is standing up and saying, we need to take these guns. Senator Ron Johnson is speaking out and saying additional measures need to restrict ammunition purchased. And we need to restrict the rights of our Second Amendment for Americans. Well, when we talk about restricting ammunition purchases, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, do you remember that the Department of Homeland Security bought 1.8 billion rounds of hollow point bullets? Should they be restricted on their ammunition purchases? Social Security Office, NOAA, what do they need with hollow point bullets? They've got them now. They've got target practice. Paper, targets in the shape of human beings from the shoulders up. So obviously they're planning on shooting people in the head with hollow point bullets. But they don't want you to have your guns. They don't want you to have your Second Amendment. They want you to turn in your gun for $200. They want to restrict the type of ammunition you're purchasing while the Department of Homeland Security keeps buying hollow point bullets. And hollow point bullets, for anyone who's listening, hollow point bullets is not about target practice. They wouldn't waste that kind of bullet on target practice. That bullet is designed to destroy the inside of a human body. They don't want to have to waste the ammunition that they're purchasing. They're purchasing the most deadly ammunition that they can get their hands on so that they can kill you in 1 or 2 shots and they don't have to deal with you anymore. And that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about them taking away the assault weapons on the streets, when we're talking about them restricting the type of weapon that we're willing or that we're able to purchase, when we're talking about the type of ammunition that is available for us to purchase, we're talking about whether or not we can defend ourselves from Homeland Security. We're talking about whether or not we can defend ourselves from the paramilitarized police that are working with Homeland Security and the FBI and the CIA and being trained in police patrol battalions all across the country using military-style jumping off of buildings, out of helicopters, scaling buildings, training to lock down cities. I mean, are we forgetting that they were training to lock down the cities in Wisconsin and Minnesota? Are we forgetting about all of those tanks that we saw up and down on railways? We need to think about this. We are seeing little bits and pieces of things going on, and we report on it. I certainly do. I've reported a lot on martial law and what we're seeing and the implications of it. But when we look at what's going on now with Sandy Hook and the coming gun control, what we're looking at here is everything that's been going on this last year culminating in what's going to happen at the beginning of next year in January. And thank God. Hey, guess what, guys? We all survived. Nothing happened, right? We were supposed to die today. Today was doomsday.
Welcome to the day after we're here.
So since we're all here and nothing happened, now we're going to have to face what's going to happen to us because of the false flag that happened in Sandy Hook, the murder of 18 children and 7 adults.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to deal with the gun control that is coming. And so in the next segment, I know I'm coming up to a break right now, but in the next segment, I am going to hit you with a lot of hard facts. And if anyone else wants to call in, please do. Thank you, Benny, for calling me, but the number is 218-339-8525. Again, the number is 218-339-8525, because I want to hear what you have to say about this gun control. I've spoken to a lot of people in alternative media about this all week, and I've spoken to people who are purveying the lies in alternative media, and I can't believe the summations that have been coming up with analyzing video and saying that this was a movie set, that nobody's dead, that none of this is real. But folks, stay seated, because on the other side of this break, I'm going to tell you what actually is real and what is going to happen to you because of what happened in Sandy Hook. Do not go away. You are not going to want to miss this.
Fight the last freedom of imagination, or drowning pop culture of the biggest nation with armies of idiots brandishing brand names of one corporation, or conflagration, the most holy train wreck of all human history. Tell me how you feel.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming back with us. This is the biggest train wreck. I want to talk about the lie that has been going on in alternative media. And I wrote an article called No Viable Connection Between Peter Lanza and U.S. Senate Libor Hearings, because I could not believe the disinformation that was going on in alternative media about this supposed connection. Ladies and gentlemen, this story started with Saoirse Fall and some anonymous person on an anonymous website with no source links linking Peter Lanza, the father of Adam Lanza, and the person, Adam Lanza, who committed the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary. There is no list of whoever is going to show up at the Senate Libor hearings, and Peter Lanza is not on any list to show up to testify. That is a flat out lie. And people have been putting this out in alternative media and not checking to see where this lie came from, not checking the source links that were claimed to be proof that Peter Lanza was going to be showing up at these Libor hearings. Nobody checked out these source links, and I did. And I looked it up. And I couldn't believe Saoirse Fall is a known disinfo agent. If you don't know who this person is, get to know this person. This person lies. And then what people do is they twist the lie and they repost it and they repost it and they repost it. And it shows up on Facebook and it shows up on Twitter. And when I put out this article, everyone caught it. Even Ben Swan caught a hold of it and spoke about it on Pete Santilli's show this week. My husband told me that he was coming home from work and he was listening to talk radio, and Fox News was talking about no viable connection between Peter Lanza and the Libor hearings. So thank God everybody listened to what I had to say and checked my source links and saw the truth that I saw, which is the alternative media is spinning your wheels and trying to get you to look somewhere else. When what's really happening, folks? Operation Gun Grab, okay? Inside the 2013 NDAA is a provision as part of the Defense Cuts proposal. It is an amendment to curb the rights of U.S. veterans with access to guns. Senator Tom Coburn would like to see all of our U.S. veterans deemed mentally incompetent. Remember what I said before the break? If you're a U.S. veteran, you're crazy. And so since you're crazy, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the DOD on top of them can decide whether or not, if you're a veteran, you have your Second Amendment rights revoked, and whether or not you will be able to purchase or possess a firearm. And that is what's going on. That is the real truth. The NDAA that was signed by Obama last year, every year it comes up for renewal. And the 2013 NDAA has a hidden provision inside of it that says that U.S. veterans are crazy. And remember that executive order I was talking about? It's entitled Improving Access to Mental Health Services for Veterans, Service Members, and Military Families. Obama signed this in September. And it says that the DOD, as well as the Departments of Veterans Affairs and other defense departments, are able to and in charge of transitioning veterans back into civilian life. Obama met at a private roundtable at Fort Bliss just before he signed this executive order in Texas, where he met with members of the military and addressed active duty troops. And the Obama administration's focus is on identifying and providing additional support, right, to soldiers who have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injuries. So what Obama and the DOD and the Department of Veterans Affairs is saying is that if you were hit in the head while you were serving, or if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, then you're crazy. You have a propensity to violence. You could be potentially dangerous to everyone around you. And because of that, you don't get the right to have the gun. And if the NDAA, the 2013 version of the NDAA, is signed with this provision in it, that means that all veterans would potentially get a knock on their door if you're a registered gun owner and have your gun taken away. And if you aren't a registered gun owner, if you go to register, they'll tell you that you can't have it. And that's the truth. You can try and figure out how they did this false flag. You can try and figure out how many people were shooting that day. You can try and figure out whether or not Adam Lanza exists. I've heard and seen videotape that people have sent me that claim that Adam Lanza never even existed, that this was a movie set, that the father who showed up in front of the press was an actor. You can spin your wheels and try and figure that out. Meanwhile, in the 2013 NDAA, they're coming for your guns. And what's going on in the mainstream media? We're talking about Hollywood. We're talking about Congress and Obama telling everyone that because we're so violent, like our caller said, because we're going crazy, because we're stressed out, because we're on psychotropic drugs, because we're all mentally ill, then we don't deserve these guns. Dianne Feinstein came out on mainstream media and she said, I am introducing into the Senate a bill, and it will be passed through the Senate and the House, and it is a bill on assault weapons, period. That 1994 Clinton assault weapons ban bill was only good for 10 years. It went out in 2004. Dianne Feinstein wants to make it permanent. And she's got a lot of backing. Look, the Discovery Channel took off, they canceled their show, American Guns, because people think that on Facebook, we're posting on their Facebook page that they wanted it removed. And guess what? They did. And they're removing other shows. They want the Sons of Guns removed. They want Ted Nugent's Gun Country removed. So we can't see. We've been watching violent television and violent movies and listening to violent music for how long? There was a study done by the University of Pennsylvania which showed that mass shootings are so rare that when they do statistics on the amount of guns that are out there in the nation and the amount of violence that are caused by gun-related violence, it's mass shootings don't even enter into the equation. What happened at Sandy Hook shooting was egregious. It was horrible. But it's so rare that it has no bearing on whether or not our Second Amendment still stands. And ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget, in 1995, Eric Holder said that there was a direct conspiracy that would be used by any means necessary to get U.S. citizens to give up their guns, even if they had to use propaganda. And I've got that clip linked up in one of my articles on OccupyCorporatism.com. The name of the article is Obama, Congress, and Hollywood Collaborate to Convince Americans to Give Up Your Guns. We have to look at this whole big picture, folks. This isn't just one shooting. This isn't just James Holmes. This isn't just the Sikh shooting. This isn't just Columbine. This isn't just Sandy Hook. This is the NDAA. That's the real truth. This is the gun control task force that Obama has set up with his lackey, Vice President Joe Biden, who will head up this task force. And it seems to have escaped the Obama administration's memory that back in 2008, when Biden was assisting Obama in becoming reelected or becoming elected for his first term as president, Biden said to convince voters that Obama was a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment, Obama said that he would guarantee that Obama, quote, ain't taking my shotguns, so don't start buying that malarkey. Meanwhile, what's happening? That same man who made that statement is now head of the gun control task force for the Obama administration. And what is his job? To figure out ways to take your guns, to figure out ways to convince the civilians of this country that because we're all crazy, we shouldn't have access to assault weapons. Assault weapons are what's going to protect us from the Obama administration. Assault weapons are what's going to protect us from our paramilitarized police when they come to take us. Assault weapons is what's going to protect us from the UN when the Blue Berets come in and try and take our sovereignty. Because that's what's next, folks. After the NDAA 2013 version is signed, and that proposal, that amendment, is not cut out thanks to people like Senator Tom Coburn. And you should write this senator and tell him, WTF? What the hell? Veterans serve our country. They're not crazy. Just because you were diagnosed with light depression does not make you crazy. Folks, I am talking about this tonight because I want you to understand the psyop that's going on is not only in the mainstream media, it's in the alternative media as well. And what's important are these amendments to the NDAA that we don't even know about. It's the task force that's happening. It's what's going to happen as a result of this false flag. We should stop trying to figure out how they pulled it off and start trying to figure out how we can stop them from taking our Second Amendment, because that is the only thing that's going to protect us from this tyrannical government. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this show, and I want you to take this show, please, and pass it along to your friends. And let everybody know about this, because we need to start educating ourselves, not just listening to any garbage that comes out in the alternative media, but also what's going on in the mainstream and what's happening as a result of what happened to us this week with Sandy Hook and all of these other shootings. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am very glad that you were here to listen to this. And I will be back next Friday at 11 to midnight Central on American Freedom Radio. You guys have a great week, and I will talk to you then.